Okay, so now that you are back, as in my case, I think the first step to take would be from the subject you love or from something that's easier for you. So we're gonna start with biology, and of course, we're starting with Unit 1 of Class 11 and the beautiful diagram of hippocampus that you're seeing, the stitches and these. So, yes, I do think I do remember some stuff, and we're not down there yet where we don't know anything because I think it's just been a week or so. So the only thing we can do is do all the revision as fast as we can. Let's start slow, but later we have to go fast because I don't think they're gonna give us 1 year to read everything again, right? So let's go with this part. So in this paper that we had, definitely there was no question from either the intro or about the scientist. But the next paper that you're gonna expect can definitely have this. I have very strong belief in it. So I think we can start with this particular page, and I'm going to do some good highlights. Alright, biology is the science of life forms and living processes. The living world comprises an amazing diversity of living organisms. Early man could easily perceive the difference between inanimate matter and living organisms. Early mind deified some of the inanimate matter like wind, sea, fire, and some among the animals and plants. So, what is meant by deified is like worshipped, right? Some of the inanimate, like wind, sea, and fire, and even some of the animals and plants. A common feature of all such forms of inanimate and animate objects was a sense of awe or fear that they evoked. The description of living organisms, including human beings, began much later in human history. Societies which indulge in anthropocentric view of biology could register only limited progress in biological knowledge. Systematic and monumental description of life forms brought in, out of necessity, detailed systems of identification, nomenclature, and classification. The biggest spin off of such studies was a recognition of sharing of similarities among living organisms both horizontally and vertically. That all present day living organisms are related to each other and also to the organisms that ever lived on this earth was a revelation which humbled man and led to cultural movements for conservation of biodiversity. In the following chapters of this unit, you will get a description including classification of animals and plants from taxonomist perspective. So if you see, some part is very simple of in terms of understanding. You can just think about Indian history, there and even now people do defy inanimate as well as animate matter objects, and I think that's a really good thing because that kind of led to a lot of conservation of biodiversity and everything as such, as you would have learned in sacred groves. And some important stuff that I really like to bring out is, firstly, you need to know what does biology simply means, because even in the simple things like this we can go confused that biology is the science of living life forms and living processes, life forms and the processes, the living processes that happen. And I think these we know the difference in animate, and it evoked awe and fear. And the fact that description of living organisms, including beings, began much later in human history. Okay, the living firstly it started with inanimate, and then we come to living organism, and then human beings. It was kind of later if you think of it that way. And also, this is a very important point. I'd say the ones which indulge what the societies which indulge in anthropocentric view of biology could register limited progress in biological knowledge. So remember that societies which indulged in anthropocentric view. So whoever just looked about and talked about man, they had only limited progress in biological knowledge. But what is the actual reason? The one who takes the relationship between man and nature, those people would have more. If you just talk about only man, that would have very limited knowledge with respect to biology. Systematic and monumental description of life forms brought in out of necessity, detailed system. Okay, this one is also important. Systemic and monumental. Description of life forms brought in out of necessities. Detailed systems like identification, nomenclature, and classification. The biggest spin off of such studies with the recognition of sharing of similarities among living organisms, both horizontal and vertical. This is also very important. And they've given the meaning of this in the next statement that horizontally means with present day living organisms. They are related to each other. Vertical means with the ones that ever lived before. So I think these are very important, like the ones which I have marked. If they take up a particular statement from this, you have to be able to easily answer this. Okay, so you know what, biology is the science of living processes and life forms. And then we talk about systemic and monumental form of description of life, which talks about the identification, nomenclature, classification. And then the similarities are based on horizontal and vertical. It's vertically and horizontally, and the ones who involved only in anthropocentric, they had very limited knowledge in biological knowledge. And the description of living organisms and human beings was much later dealt in the whole human history, right? So I think that we are pretty clear about. So that is the first part of diversity in living organisms. Now coming to one of the most important person. Let me be honest, I actually expected his name to come in the paper, but it didn't. But let me tell you, it can come now. And who is this great person? He's Ernst Mayr, the one and only Darwin of 20th century, and is also called as the triple crown of biology. Okay, and just remember that he's lived 100 years. So I think that was the first thing I saw when I learned about him. But still, let's read about him once, right? Born on 5th July 1904. In Kempten, Germany, Ernst Mayr, the Harvard University evolutionary biologist, he was an evolutionary biologist, who has been called the Darwin of the 20th century, was one of the 100 greatest scientists of all time. Mayr joined Harvard Faculty of Arts and Sciences in 1953 and retired in 1975, assuming the title of Alexander Agassiz Professor of Zoology Emeritus. Throughout his nearly 80-year career, his research spanned ornithology, taxonomy, I think let's answer. Ornithology, taxonomy, zoography, evolution, systematics, and history and philosophy of biology. He almost, okay, this one is important, almost single-handedly made the origin of species of diversity the central question of evolutionary biology. See, because he's an evolutionary biologist, right? And he also pioneered the currently accepted definition. Okay, this is also important. Currently accepted definition of biological species. This was a question that was one time asked in one of the papers that I've written before. Not NEET, but one of the AIM 720 paper. Mayr was awarded the three prizes widely regarded as the Triple Crown of Biology. We have the Balzan Prize in 1983, International Prize of Biology 1994, and Craftford. Okay, just reading it once because who knows? They can go crazy enough to ask this also, don't they? Right, so I think this is some important stuff that we're learning about Darwin here. So we learned about the fact he's a Darwin of 20th century. We learned the fact that he worked on ornithology, which is studying of birds, taxonomy, zoo geography, evolution, systematics, and history and philosophy of biology. And this is more important, which is very single-handedly made the origin of species diversity the central question of evolutionary biology. And then he also pioneered the currently accepted definition of biological species. Pioneered the currently accepted definition of biological species. And he's on at the Triple Crown. Let's go. So this is Ernst Mayr. And we'll learn more about him soon, but let's see. Going to chapter 1, the living world. So I think we can just chill down, read this whole thing like a storybook, and mark stuff that we like, mark stuff that we think is important, and eventually be done with one chapter. That is gonna be great for a start, right? Okay, let me read you. You can just close your eyes and listen to it because it's gonna be fun. Trust me. How wonderful is the living world! The wide range of living types is amazing. The extraordinary habitats in which we find living organisms, be it cold mountains, deciduous forests, oceans, freshwater lakes, deserts, or hot springs, leave us speechless. The beauty of a galloping horse, of the migrating birds, the valley of flowers, or the attacking shark evokes awe and deep sense of wonder. The ecological conflict and cooperation among members of a population and among populations of a community, or even the molecular traffic inside a cell, make us deeply reflect on what indeed is life. I think that is a question we need to think about ourselves when we talk about the whole situation of this NEET 2026. Okay. This question has two implicit questions within it. The first is a technical one and seeks answer to what living is as opposed to non living. And the second is a philosophical one that seeks answer to what purpose of life is. Wow. Now that is something great. As scientists, we shall not attempt answering the second question, but we will try to reflect on what is living. Interesting. I think that is something I'd love to take up, learn about. Cute? Yes. Okay. Next, we're going to learn about diversity in the living world. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms, be it potted plants, insects, birds, your pets, or other animals and plants. There are also several organisms that you cannot see with your naked eye, but they are all around you. If you were to increase the area that you make observations in, the range and variety of organisms that you see would probably increase. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would probably see a much greater number and kinds of living organisms in it. Each different kind of plant, animal, or organism that you see represents a species. The number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 million. This is the most important. You need to know that the ones that are known and the ones that are described. Known and described range lies between 1.7 to 1.8 million. This number is the most important, I'd say, for this chapter. 1.7 to 1.8 million. And this refers to biodiversity or the number and types of organisms which are present on Earth. So, what is this? This is the biodiversity. It's the number of types of organisms that are present on Earth, and we should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. Okay? Right. I think I just want to note out this number. If you give me some time, I'll just note that down because numbers are pretty important. I think which I didn't do earlier, I could put all the numbers and data in one point so that later the revision could be easier, right? Let me get a pen. Right, I got the pen. Now let's just mention those things here. So 1.7 to 1.8 million species. known, and describe. Good. Yes, good. Next. Okay. As stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world, and we know the plants and animals in our own area by their local names, and these local names would vary from place to place or even within a country. Probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we do not find ways and means to talk to each other or to refer to organisms we are talking about. Hence, there is need to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world, and this is known as nomenclature. So before I do this and this, I'm gonna mark the definition with this color. Okay, right? That is one important thing. Hmm. So obviously, nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly, and we know to what organism the name is attached to. So this is what we call as nomenclature. So if they ask you what is something that is required before you do the nomenclature, is that you need to identify what that is, right? You need to describe it correctly, where it belongs to, what it is attached to, what is it, how is the relation with it to other. So then you can easily do the nomenclature. So first, before nomenclature, you need to identify. Okay. Moving on. In order to facilitate the study, number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. This is acceptable to biologists all over the world. For plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria which are provided in, write this as well, which is International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, and for animals it is International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. For botanical nomenclature of zoological nomenclature, it's different and you need to learn it. Okay, that is something that we need to learn. And next, the scientific names ensure that each organism has only one name. Description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other known organism. Okay, so that is something. Biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each name has two components, which is generic name and specific epithet. This system of providing a name with two components is known as binomial nomenclature. Important. So I think this was a question in the NEET examination, right? So there was a question from this part. So this is the most easiest part and the most important because there was question from here. So you need to remember that a biological name has generic name as well as specific epithet. Do not get confused with what is genus and species. Genus is the generic name, species is the specific epithet. So that is the binomial nomenclature. This naming system given by, see, remember the naming system is given by Carolus Linnaeus. Is being practiced by biologists all over the world. This naming system using a two-word format was found convenient. Let us take the example of mango to understand the way of providing scientific names better. The scientific name of mango is given as Mangifera indica. So let us see how it is a binomial name. In this name, Mangifera represents the genus, while indica is a particular species or a specific epithet. And other universal rules of nomenclature are also as follows. So this is where the question was asked for this year NEET. And as you can see, it's so simple, but it was as important to ask in the examination. So the first statement is biological names are generally in Latin and it is written in italics, and they are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. Remember this, very important. So it is Latinized or derived from Latin even though their origin might be different, right? So they are all Latin and they are written in italics. Now another important thing, the first word in a biological name represents the genus while the second component denotes a specific epithet. Both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined. There was another question like they're jointly underlined or something like that. So remember they're separately underlined. Or if they are printed in italics, or if they are printed, they can be in italics, something like that. Okay. Last, the first word denoting the genus starts with the capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. This is also important. It can be illustrated with the example of Mangifera indica, right? So these are the four important points that you need to know. And yeah, ultimately questions could be asked from here. Where can you go wrong? If you're not calm in the examination, you've read the sentence wrong. Okay. Other than that, I'm sure you'll be able to remember everything. And remember, irrespective of the origin, they're Latinized. Name of the author appears after the specific epithet, that is at the end of the biological name, and is written in an abbreviated form. This one is also important, like Mangifera indica Lin is actually asked in so many questions. And who is that Lin? He's the author whose name is appearing after the specific epithet. And it indicates that this species, okay. Now, what is the reason that this species was described by him? We put a small star. Remember that the name Lin indicates that the species was described by him. Now, I kind of have a confusion. I think now that we're learning it again and again, we'll get more confusions from the same part. So let me begin with the confusion is the naming system was given by Carolus Linnaeus. So what did he actually do? Did he give the naming system or did he identify the species? But it's not like he identified every species. And or is it like he did both? Identify the species of mango as well as give the naming system. So let me just clear that out. Just take a few seconds. From Living World chapter, and by the way, I'm relearning for reading. So from Living World chapter, there is a line that tells Carolus Linnaeus is the one who gave the naming system of biological nomenclature. And then also after Mangifera indica Lin, there it's written that it indicates that this species was first described by Linnaeus. Now, did he do both or both is the same is my doubt. Okay, so he did both. And he personally described and named many species himself. So that was important point. So did he give the nomenclature or yeah. So the first thing was that he described himself and that is what is given here. Okay, let's see more things. Alright guys, let's continue. Let me just see through NTA website once more. Please don't mind me, but it's been giving me a little bit of, trauma. Just want to look into it once more. Okay. The last thing is press release, guys. Whatever. I'm not remembering that right now. Let's continue. Since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible, and that is through classification. Yeah. And this is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observed characters. Okay? For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants or animals or dogs, cats, or insects. The moment we use any of these terms, we associate certain characters with the organism in that group. What images do you see when you think of a dog? Obviously, each one of us will see dogs and not cats. Now, if you were thinking of Alsatians, I think this is one of a kind of German Shepherd, and without a secondary, we know what we are talking about. Similarly, suppose we say the word mammals. You would, of course, think of animals with external ears and body hair. Likewise, in plants, if we try to talk of wheat, the picture in our minds will be of wheat plants and not of rice or any other plant. Hence, all these dogs, cats, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, animals. This is the most important line, let me tell you. So, these, like dogs, cats, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, etc., are convenient categories used to study organisms, and the specific term for these is the taxa. And next, they also mention, see, what are they mentioning as taxa? The convenient categories that we are using to study organisms, like dogs, cats, mammals, and stuff like that. And specific term for these categories is what we call as taxa. Here you must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at very different levels. Plants also form a taxa. Wheat is also a taxa. Like even in different levels, you can have ranks, right? Something like that. So plant also could be a rank, a taxa. Wheat also could be a rank, a taxa, something like that. And then similarly, animals, mammals, dogs are all taxa, but you know the dog is a mammal and mammals are animals. So these animals, mammals, and dogs represent taxa at different levels. The most important guys of all, I've seen the last line asked us questions quite a few times, and the first few times I still remember making a mistake in this. I was just thinking, how am I supposed to know it? Simple, you just need to know the Ncert line. And if you understand it, you can still answer more questions. Right. Next we have, hence, based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process is known as taxonomy. Got another definition, which is, based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into different taxa. Classification. Okay. External and internal structure, along with structure of cell, development process, ecological information of organisms are essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. Okay, now that is something I don't remember learning. External and internal structure, along with structure of cell, development of process, ecological information. These are all essential for the basic of taxonomic studies. Once more, external internal structure, along with structure of cell, development process, and ecological information of organisms. Okay, good. Okay. So when you're dividing these characteristics into different levels or taxa, that is actually taxonomy. And we also saw what are the requirements for modern taxonomic studies. Lastly, they tell hence characterization, identification, and classification and nomenclature are the processes that are basic to taxonomy. Okay. Next, taxonomy is not something new. Human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about various kinds of organisms, particularly with reference to their own use. In early days, human beings needed to find sources for their basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter. Hence, the earliest classification were based on the uses of various organisms. See, so taxonomy was used from that time itself. So, and it was mostly based on uses of various organisms. Now, let's talk about human beings were, since long, not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms and their diversity, but also the relationship among them. And this branch is known as systematics. We've got another definition, not just about different kinds of organisms, but also the relation among organisms. And it's derived from this is also important, which tells it is derived from the Latin word systema, which means systemic arrangement of organisms. So Linnaeus used Systema Naturae as the title of his publication. Who knows? They could ask this kind of question also. Because normally Linnaeus is not anywhere else mentioned, but they could also suddenly bring up Linnaeus and tell was is it that his publication, which was named as Systema Naturae. The scope of systematics was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, and classification. Systematics takes into account evolutionary relationship between organisms. Now that is something important and good. The fact that it also took care of evolutionary relationships among organisms. Right, moving on. Right, we've done so much. We just have few more important things and we'll be done with the chapter. Okay. Now let's move on to some more important things. I think I would want to change the color a little bit. Okay. Taxonomic categories. Classification is not a single step but involves hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a rank or category. Okay. Since the category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement, it is called taxonomic category. And all categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. Each category referred to as a unit of classification in fact represents a rank which is known as a taxon. Okay, so we've talked about taxon, we've talked about taxonomic hierarchy, about taxonomic category. So these are few important things. So remember that classification is not a single step. It involves a hierarchy of steps in which each step represents a taxon or a rank, and each category is a part of overall taxonomic arrangement known as taxonomic category. All these categories together constitute the taxonomic hierarchy, and each category would be called a unit of classification, which is stored as a rank, or it's also known as taxon, right? So these are some important stuff. Next we got taxonomic categories and hierarchy can be illustrated by an example. Insects represent a group of organisms sharing common features, like three pairs of jointed legs. It means insects are recognizable concrete objects which can be classified and thus were given a rank or category. Okay. Can you name other such groups of animals? Wait, what? Like annelids having metamerism? Something like that, right? And jointed appendages, like they've given an insecta. So you could see these are taxonomic categories and hierarchies which are illustrated defined. And that is also based on some of their common features which they are talking about. Next we have, remember, groups represent category. Category further denotes rank. Each rank or taxon in fact represents a unit of classification. Okay. So are they similar? Yes, there is a question that tells category, rank, taxon, these are all similar. Unit of classification. We're all, remember, groups represent category. These taxonomic groups slash categories, see, groups and categories, taxonomic group and categories also mention the same, are distinct biological entities and not merely morphological aggregates. Another important different kind of line. Okay. Alright, moving on. Taxonomical studies of all known organisms have led to the development of common categories such as kingdom, phylum, or division, class, order, family, genus, and species. This is a very basic question, and if you ask me how do I remember it, kids prefer cheese over fried green spinach. And always remember, instead of phylum for animals, there is division for plants. All organisms, including those in the plant and animal kingdom, have species of the lowest category. Now the question you may ask is how to place an organism in various categories. The basic requirements is the knowledge of characters of an individual or group of organisms. Okay. So they've given a question and they've given the answer. That to place an organism in various categories, you need to know the basic knowledge of characters of an individual or groups of organisms. So this helps in identifying similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals of the same kind of species as well as of other kind. So that's what the requirement they are talking about is. So you can see similarities and dissimilarities, and hence you can place them accordingly in categories. Alright, so right now we're actually gonna start species. I don't know why did I tell series right now. But let's just put that apart. Let me tell you, like, this whole part, I actually did it yesterday when it was actually announced that we have a renate, and today is the next day, and it's already like more than half of the day is done. And I mean, all I want to say is that I'm just not feeling it, but we have to push through if we need to get what we need ultimately, because this could be a reason where a lot of people would back off from NTA, and it's not easy to be a doctor in India. So I think we're gonna take all that in our mind, and we're gonna quickly, you know, do everything as much as we can. Uh, right? So yes, so we're just continuing, and I think I can make up my mind thinking that I'm studying for the ISER aptitude test because I do have that test coming up. So let me be like I'm doing that, as well as I'll do some extra stuff that I need to. For example, I want to learn my instrument. So I think even we've got some stuff. So let's not back off everything just because of this one situation. And yes, I did keep seeing millions of videos about this Renate, and it's a waste of time again. But anyway, we're gonna continue. If you're feeling weird, anything, don't worry. We are all with you. So let's not feel weird anymore. Let's just come back as soon as possible. And yes, we are here. So let's continue. So in this part, you can see it might feel simple, easy, But all these names are something that you definitely need to remember. Like you need to remember solanum has nigra, melangina, and tuberosum. So you need to remember all these important things. So let's go from the beginning. So we're starting from species. Taxonomic studies consider a group of individual organisms with fundamental similarities as a species. So only if they have fundamental similarities, they come under a species. One should be able to distinguish one species from the other closely related species based on the distinct morphological differences. Okay? So we have fundamental similarity through which they put, and when you're differentiating between each, you're having to look into the morphological differences. And for the examples, I think I'm going to use pink. Mangifera indica, Solanum tuberosum for potato, and Panthera leo for lion. So all these are indica, tuberosum, leo are specific epithet, while the first word Mangifera, Solanum, and Panthera are genera and represents another higher level of taxon or category. Each genus may have one or more than one specific epithet representing different organisms, but having morphological similarity. See, they've brought two things: morphological similarity and morphological differences. So if you are saying in the same particular species, you are seeing the morphological similarities, but if you're comparing with two different species, then it's morphological differences. Remember the word morphology here. For example, Panthera has another specific epithet called tigris, and Solanum has nigrum and melangina. Again, this is important. Panthera has even tigris, and Solanum will have nigrum and melangina. And human beings ourselves, we are called Homo sapiens, right? So this is some important and simple thing about species. Moving on to the genus. Genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common in compared to the species of other genera. So you're telling me genus has more species? No, it has more characters which are common in comparison to species of another genera. Okay, makes sense, makes sense. Like this could be a trick statement, guys. Like although all of a sudden if they put something like this, it might be like a trick one, right? So you need to remember that genus comprises a group of related species which has more characters in common as in comparison to species of another genera. So they are talking about group of related species, let's put it in A, group of related species, let's put it in B. The ones which are in the A, the species, they have more characters in common because they belong to a particular genus than the species of other genera. So that's what they mean. Simple, okay? We can say the genera are aggregates of closely related species. For example, potato and brinjal are two different species but both belong to the genus Solanum. See, like you can observe that potato and brinjal, those two different species, they belong to genus Solanum. And you have look at these three examples which are important. Panthera leo, Panthera paradis, and Panthera tigris are some things with several common features and are all species of genus Panthera. And this genus differs from another genus Felis, which includes cats, right? Remember that also. So there is another different genus called Felis. So you have Panthera and you have Felis as two different genus. Alright. Remember Felis is a genus, guys. I used to get confused with that, that's why. Moving on to family. The next category, family, has a group of related genera with still less number of similarities as compared to genus and species. So you could see the difference here. They mention that group of related with more characters in common compared to the species, right? Here, if you can see, it has a group of related genera with less number of similarities as compared to genus. So remember, if you this one is a comparison between the families, genus, and species. So then both of these, the number of similarities is definitely less, right? So that's what they mean. Families are characterized on the basis of both vegetative and reproductive features. Very important. Okay. both vegetative and reproductive features of plant species. If they're given animal species, definitely they don't have vegetative features. Let's remember that, okay? Among plants, for example, three different genera, Solanum, Petunia, and Datura, are placed in family Solanaceae. Okay? Next, among animals, for example, genus Panthera comprising lion, tiger, and leopard is put along with Felis in the family Felidaceae. This is also another good example. Similarly, if you observe the features of cat and a dog, you will find some similarities and some differences as well. They are separated into two different families. So we have Canidae and Felidae. So for dogs and cats, that's a dogs, whatever. Okay, next we have order. You have seen earlier that categories like species, genus, and families are based on number of similar characters, right? Hmm. Generally, order and other higher taxonomic are identified based on aggregates of characters. Now, sure, they're kind of giving a comparison between species, genus, and families as well as order and the higher ones. Let's mark that out. See, honestly telling you, the fact that I'm reading it all over again gives me a whole different perspective of reading it. I don't think I've read it this way when I used to read before before the NEET exam. So now it's a different situation, as you can see. So they're telling that species, genus, and families, these are based on number of similar characters. But when you go to the order and higher taxonomic categories, these are based on aggregates of characters is what they tell. Okay, let's just remember this. See, the thing is, you don't have to by heart anything. A multiple choice exam doesn't require you to by heart, but it requires you to know what is there in the book. So if you once seen this word that for lower ones they are based on several characters and for higher ones it's aggregate characters, and if you just see that, you'll remember from where it is and you'll be able to determine whether it's the right statement or not. So that makes the whole game of NEET easier because it's all in the brain. The studying part is definitely easier. So we're gonna do that, but mentally I think we're gonna prepare ourselves to it, right? Okay, I don't want to talk a lot. Let's continue. Order, being a higher category, is an assemblage of families which exhibit a few similar characters. Okay. Now, what does it mean again by few similar characters? We've learned that family has a few similar characters compared to genus and species. In the same way, order has families which exhibit few similar characters. Okay, they're still decreased. Okay, that's what they mean. Okay, next, the similar characters are less in number as compared to different genera, included in a family. Right, something that we learned before. Now, this is important. Plant families like Convolvulaceae, Solanaceae are included in the order Polymonialis, mainly based on floral characters. Remember this. They could ask this. So we've learned about families like Solanaceae, Convolvulaceae, Brassicaceae, and Leguminosae. So here they've mentioned two families, which is Convolvulaceae and Solanaceae, which are included in a particular order called Polymonialis. And I think this word, mm, yeah, it's the first time coming to this word, Polymonialis. And remember, for um, order in plants, it's actually kind of ends with ALES, Polymonialis, Sapindales, Poelis. I think in the coming table we're going to learn more about it. And next we have order Carnivora, which includes Felidae and Canidae. Okay, that's also another thing. Remember, we as humans, we are in the order Primata, houseflies and Diptera, but this fine. Order Carnivora, we are omnivores, so remember that also. Felidae and Canidae is a carnivorous family. No, it's not like that. My dog eats rice and stuff. But that's secondary. Order Carnivora has families of Felidae. I think when we do the revision, we can have a more clear idea of it, but now that we're reading it, it's fine. Next, we have class, and this category includes related orders. For example, order Primata, comprising monkey, gorilla, and gibbon, is placed in class Mammalia, along with order Carnivora that includes animals like tiger, cat, and dog. So class Mammalia has other orders also. Okay? Order Primata comprises of monkey and is placed in class Mammalia along with order Carnivora that includes animals like tiger. Okay, that's a neat sense example. I was gonna tell experiment, sorry. Next, let's go to phylum. Classes comprising animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, along with mammals constitute the next higher called phylum, and all these based on common features like presence of notochord, dorsal hollow neural system are included in phylum chordata. In case of plants, classes with a few similar characters are assigned a high category called division. So let's remember, for plants it's called division, and for animals it's called phylum. And think about the phylum, you're well aware because the whole animal kingdom revolves around it, right? Anyway, next, let's finish the kingdom first, right? All animals belonging to various phyla are assigned to the highest category called kingdom Animalia in the classification system of animals. Kingdom Plantae, on the other hand, is distinct and comprises all plants from various divisions. Henceforth, we will refer to these two groups as animal and plant kingdom. The taxonomic categories from species to kingdom have been shown in ascending order, starting with species. This is the one step rule. These are broad categories. See the word broad categories, I know it's giving something. So let's learn it. And as you can see, something simple that I've learned from my class 8 or something, kids prefer cheese over fried green spinach, and phylum and division is different. So see, this is very easy, but if something has gone wrong in the examination, it could lead to a whole problem, right? So let's not look into it. However, taxonomists have also developed subcategories in this hierarchy to facilitate more sound and scientific placement of various taxa. Look at the hierarchy in figure 1.1. Can you recall the basis of arrangement? Say, for example, as we go higher from species to kingdom, the number of common characteristics goes on decreasing. That is an important line. Species to kingdom is what they are telling, a number of common characteristics, not just characters, number of common ones goes on decreasing. There's a lot of words you need to remember, a lot of keywords. What are the keywords? Firstly, it's higher, it's not lower, higher from species to kingdom. The number of common characteristics. The number is also important, common is also important, characteristics also important. Goes on decreasing is what you need to know. Lower the taxa, more are the characters that the members within the taxonomy share. Higher the category, greater is the difficulty in determining the relationship to other taxa at the same level. Once more, this is another very important statement. I've seen it in like millions of papers. Higher the category, greater is the difficulty in determining the relationship to other taxa at the same level. Hence, the problem of classification becomes more complex. The last and the final one of the chapter, which is again the most important, and I've kind of found a way to remember, is this, which is organisms with their taxonomic categories. Whatever you do, you shouldn't skip this part of the chapter. Simple chapter, but has very important things, and easily people can go wrong in this. I still remember a few days before the NEET exam when I had my mock test, I had made a silly mistake in this because I knew Mantifera, Anacardius, Avilays, whatever, all these, but they had asked from phylum to genus. So, lack of reading the question properly, it kind of led to all this, right? Okay, organism with their taxonomic categories. So, I kind of found a simple way if you need to remember. And firstly, remember all these. These are all very common. So, you need to remember them. Man, Homo sapiens, housefly, Musca domestica, mango, Mangifera indica, wheat, Triticum aestum. Simple, good. Next, when we talk about genus, family, order, class, and phylum, what I remember is homies have premium milk can. What is it? Homies have premium milk can. And remember, homies start from genus. So it's like genus, family, order, class, and division. Phylum and division. So we have Homo, Hominidae, Primata, premium for Primata. Milk is Mammalia, class, and cans, chordata. Okay, good. Next, Musca must dipped in air. musca must dip in air. This was easy. Next, mangoes are sweet, delicious appetizer. Simple. I think this one makes more sense. Mangoes are sweet, delicious appetizer. You need to know what stands for A, anacardies. You need to remember what stands for yes, sapindales. You need to remember dicotyledons. Last but not the least, try pouring pure milk anywhere. The meaning, like, not the meaning, but like, it's try pouring pure milk anywhere. Remember the 2C, C for family, Poel is for order, and I've told you ALES if it comes. Basically, it's order, and but when it comes to plant kingdom, ACAE, family when it comes to plant kingdom, and here AEAA, family when it comes to animal kingdom. It literally ends with A. Okay, something simple. You don't have to mug up. You just have to remember, make some. I've realized that NEET is all about tricks, mnemonics, and stuff like that. So if you remember so much, everything will be great. Okay? Moving on with the summary. You would know how important summary is, though it was not emphasized in NEET 2026. It will be emphasized in the next NEET 2026 exam. And yeah, this feels so bad. And also, guys, let me show you something. Um, so there was a poll where it decides. It's just asking you how are you feeling about this renate. 68% of people among 1,000 tell they are ready to prepare again. So when they are ready to prepare again, there's already so many people who've come back to the race now that they've understood this is another chance for them. People who've been already doing good, it's no time for you to sulk down and be sad. All you need to do is bring up the momentum, make it fun like how you did before, and ace it, right? You can have more fun probably after the second NEET 2026 is done, right? Okay, let's finish that. Now we're talking about summary. A living world is rich in variety. Millions of plants and animals have been identified and described, but a large number still remains unknown. So, as you can see, there's something that's so much different than what's given in the textbook. This word is not even mentioned in the chapter. Living world is rich in variety. Millions of plants and animals have been identified and described by a large number and still remains unknown. The very range of organisms in terms of size, color, habitat, physiological and morphological features make us seek the defining characteristics of living organism. Once more, the very range of organisms in terms of size, color, habitat, physiological and morphological feature make us seek the defining characteristics of living organism. So that is something important. I'm reading it for the first time, by the way. I don't remember reading it before. Good. In order to facilitate the study of kinds and diversity of organisms, biologists have evolved certain rules and principles for identification, nomenclature, and classification of organisms. The branch of knowledge dealing with these aspects is known as taxonomy. Okay? Mhm. The taxonomic studies of various species of plants and animals are useful in agriculture, forestry, industry, and in general for knowing our bioresources and their diversity. The basics of taxonomy, like identification, naming, classification of organisms, are universally evolved under international codes based on the resemblances and distinct differences. Each organism is identified and assigned a correct scientific/biological name comprising two words as per the binomial nomenclature. An organism represents/occupies a place or position in the system of classification. There are many categories/ranks which are generally referred to as taxonomic categories or taxa, and all the taxonomic categories constitute a taxonomic hierarchy. All is simple and fine. This is something different. Okay. Ncert has got a lot of hidden things. Right. Now, something that I did not do for the previous need was look at these exercise questions. I never actually wanted to, but I think it's got a lot of things hidden in itself. So I think if they would give a hard exam soon, they could work with these, right? Why are living organisms classified? Probably first reason could be the number, because there's 1.7 to 1.8 billion which we know. So if you classify it, the study becomes easier. We're gonna refer to the answers later on, but let's first try answering them and see what kind of questions are here. Why are the classification system changing every now and then? Now that's a good question. Why are the classifications changing every now and then? Um, I mean, the more you research on the organisms, see, for example, the early classification was based on morphological observation, but when you saw the anatomical observation, the classification changed. So I think the more advanced we are getting with technology, the more better and more sound it becomes to classify certain organisms in a certain way. And when you talk about fungi, so in class Deuteromycetes, they talk that if they find out the reproductive phase, sexual phase of Deuteromycetes, then they might be transferred to something like Ascod or Basidiomycetes, right? So I think it's all about finding. The more evolved we become in technology to completely or rightly understand an organism, the more classification system gets changed. That was a very philosophical answer. Let's remember it like that. What different criteria would you choose to classify people that you meet often? Oh, that is philosophical. I would classify people like who I'm very comfortable with, who I'm not, whom I have to be professional with, I shouldn't have, who I need to talk less with, certain people whom I'm supposed to not tell everything about myself because they're gonna spill the beans everywhere. Something like that. Next question. What do we learn from identification of individuals and population? What do we learn? Um, we learn how they're related to different organisms. That's a question I want to see. Like, what do we learn from identification of individuals and populations? Identification of individuals and populations. Okay, I'll see to it. Next, I think this one is few times asked, and the correct answer is this one. Define a taxon. Give some examples of taxa at different hierarchical level. What is a taxon? Let me be honest. The fact that we don't have to buy anything, I have no idea about the definition. But let's see. We have a lot of definitions. Taxon, category, characterization. It's a unit of classification. That's all. I'm just sticking with the fact that it's a unit of classification. And they're asking we need examples of taxa at different hierarchical levels. Same hierarchical level only would be dogs, cats, and mammals. Different hierarchical levels, like what? Okay. I mean, could we take up Homo sapiens, Musca domestica, Manchester, and Cut because these are tags are at different hierarchical levels, right? Sorry, they're the same hierarchical level. Or what if we take Homo hominidae primata mammalia, right? Let's check for that. I think that's an important question. Identify the correct sequence. Gets preferred cheese over hardened spinach. This is right. Gets preferred cheese over spinach. No, this is wrong. This is also right. Okay. Try to collect all the currently accepted meanings for the word species. Discuss with the teacher. The meaning of species in case of higher plants and animals on one hand and bacteria on the other hand. Define and understand the following terms. Illustrate the taxonomical hierarchy with suitable examples of a plant and an animal. I think we could do that with the one we learned. I really want to see the ninth, eighth, as well as the sixth, and like verify the other. So let me take the answer key. Just give me a minute. Class 11 Living World answers solution. Right, so there are huge answers. What are living organisms classified? They've given large variety of plants, animals, and animal found on Earth. All these have different size, shape, color, habitat, and many other. I think there's something they found out in the summary part. As there are millions of living organisms on Earth, studying each of them is impossible, and therefore scientists have devised mechanisms to classify all living organisms, and these methods of classification are based on rules and principles that allow identification, nomenclature, final classification of organisms. Huge. The more they identify and discover, the more they classify. Okay, what do we learn from identification of individuals in population? The knowledge of characterization of an individual or its entire population helps in identification of similarities and dissimilarities among individuals of the same kind or between different types of organisms to help the scientists to classify. In biological terms, species is a basic taxonomic rank. It can be defined as a group of similar organisms that are capable of interpreting under natural conditions to perform. There's not there in Ncert, but anyway, we know it. Therefore, a group of I'm just feeling so angry seeing that emblem which tells Ministry of Education Government of India. It's a freaking joke. Never mind. Phylum is a primary division of kingdom. It includes one or more related classes and bonds its division. Class is a taxonomic group consisting of one or more related orders. Family is a taxonomic group containing one or more related genera. In plants, families are categorized on the basis of vegetative and reproductive feature. Order is a taxonomic group containing one or more families. For example, we have order Carnivora and stuff like that. Genus is a taxonomic group including closely related species. For example, genus Solanum includes many species such as Nigra, Melangina, tuberosa. How is a key helpful in identification? Key. They've asked about key. It's not there. Deleted syllabus now. I don't think they've given the answer for. Yeah, they've not given the answer. Okay, that's given. Species can also be defined as group of individuals that share the same gene pool. Fine. It's a whole different situation now. with the behind questions. But anyway, we're done with the whole chapter. I think the only thing I'll bring out next is we're gonna take some time revise all these, because I'm sure you would have understood that learning is not ever enough. We need to revise. So now that we're done with this chapter, pat yourselves in the back. All we need to do is revise and solve few questions. I do have you know I have this thing called Know Your NCRT, which I did not touch, but we are going to do it. Okay, so now that we're done with this chapter, I think the next thing I'll come up with is solving questions as well as revising the highlighted parts. So for now, ciao guys. We've gone through a lot. If you've come until the end of this, I'm sure you're already strong enough to continue the rest of the preparation for the next need and get with flying colors. Right now, my mark is around 602, but let's aim for 700 plus, right? And it's completely possible now that we're seeing it more and now that we're studying it more. So let's meet in the next video. Bye guys.